What's up, everybody? Today is April 21st, Friday. We had a good week. This week, we'll be diving into LasagnaCat, refining his setup and refining his rules, and see how he's doing as progressing through his strategy to see if he has the confidence to trade it live in a few weeks. So without further ado, kick it off. What you got, Lasagna Cat?
All right, what's up, everybody? This is LasagnaCat, and I'm here to talk about this setup that I'm playing. I'm only going to be playing one setup for a long time. On the last couple weeks on these meetings, I identified a setup that I like. Um, the screenshot we're looking at right here is a pretty good example of it. There's a couple things that are off, and I'll get into that. But first, let me just explain the setup. So the setup that I'm looking for is like a dump to long. All right. And typically what I look for is a dump to a new low of day. And that might be the best way to play it. Um, but I'll get into more of that later because the dump to new low of day seems to work really well. So what it is, it's like dump to low, wait for a leg up, draw a fib down to the zero, preferably on a red pullback. But this wasn't, but I'll get into more of that later. And then what I look for is like RSI overcool, recover overcool, do an RSI cross, um, and look for MACD and a couple other things, but I'll just walk you through. So today, like, it was kind of, I think, in this zone right here previous, there was like a range that was like kind of caught in, but this dump took it below the range. And a lot of things that's been happening in the market for a while now is like, a new low to like a bounce or like a little leg up. This actually just turned into a consolidation zone and went down, but the system still played out real well. So what happened was I was like, okay, here's the dump. Cool. My setup begins with the dump out. And then I was watching Bollinger Bands and I was watching RSI. I was like, all right, the thing that I want to see now is for MES to catch support. And on the SPY chart, there was some support, but here's also MES's standard dev -1. And Brandon talks a lot about how futures do a bounce or a leg up or a move off of standard dev -1. So I had that on my radar. And I was looking at the Bollinger Bands. I got Bollinger Bands going as well. And I saw a big candle close under. I saw this kind of hammering up and a candle open on the inside, which is a good indication that something could happen, coupled with RSI overcooled to hopefully recover. And when you see the RSI overcool, that's when you start looking at MACD closing in on itself, hopefully for a cross, but you look for it, you look for the two lines to begin getting closer, which they did around here, they started. I also have these RSI crossover arrows. Again, the arrow doesn't mean, just jump in, but the arrow is another heads up indicator that the setup could be forming. So after the dump, I look for all that stuff. This is what I want to see next. This is what I want to see. This is what I want to see. And it all kind of happened at once. And that's my indication. Okay, now what I want to see is a leg up. And so here's my leg up. Higher low, which is awesome. Got a higher low right here off of this low. Now, ideally, there would be a red pullback from this fib to create an ad zone. But there was no red pullback. I have often done fibs just on a green tippy top and they've worked. So one thing I'm refining in my system, which I don't have an answer to yet, but it's in my notes, is like, is there an okay time to like draw the fib from a green tippy top, or should I strictly rely on the red pullback? That's a work in progress. I'll keep you up to date if I come up with any answers. But the candle, so I entered at this candle, and the candle that I entered in was red at the point that I entered it. It was pretty much the very bottom of this. Now, ideally, this would be a really clear higher low, but it really isn't. Like these two candles kind of shelved up here a bit. I was basically just working from the ad zone. So another small criticism of mine with this particular setup was there was no really clear second high or low. There was this nice high or low, but this one, yeah, it's a little suspect. But at any rate, RSI looked fantastic. Crossover, MACD was looking real good. There's even a nice little bit of green volume coming up, but this setup doesn't necessarily rely on volume. So like, but that's it. Support down here, create an ad zone. I bought right at the top of the ad zone, like the only place that I kind of pulled back before this move up to my 161 fib. So the fib worked out in this case, also contacting the 50 SMA. And I got out right there, and that's the trade. So if anybody has any comments, if anything was unclear, just feel free to just jump on in. Um, anything you need to add or questions. Because I can also move on to the next one. And Semper's mic is muted. He might have stepped away for a sec. Um, oh, there's Semper right there. Um, so yeah, I don't know how much you heard, but I walked everybody through this trade right there, and I kind of pointed out the stuff that I wasn't that into about it,
Hmm.
like that it's not a red pullback here. Like even though this candle was red when I got in, so not a red pullback, it was a green tippy top, and that this isn't really it's not a true high or low.
Yeah.
Like here was a true high or low. And the other thing about this setup is I'm trying to figure out when would be an okay time to enter on the first high or low. Because these days you'll see from my other examples that I wait for a high or low and then exit on the next high or low.
Yeah.
But this one worked out. This was my very first trade this week, looking for the new system. And so I learned a few things and I got to trade that one as it happens.
Hmm. As long as you would have probably seen the RSI maybe going back into the range,
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that you would have wanted on the RSI would be to create a higher low as well, which it did
Right.
right before you got in.
Yeah.
So that's what you want to see, and especially see how it started spreading apart.
Yeah.
That would give you a little bit more confidence to get in where you got in.
Yeah.
But that's also what how the candle develops. Sometimes, like you said, it was red, but it ended up being green, so it did pull back.
Yeah.
It's just, and also to the point of the green candle, I've done it where I fibbed out, um, where I have fibbed out right here, like from here, from this area to
Mm-hmm.
this area, and it's green, even though it's not a pullback.
Yeah.
Um, even though the next one is. So you can do it on the green. So that right there, did you do it right when this candle was like being created, or did?
As soon as it was like when this candle came up and it started going down a little bit, probably when it started going down right there, I just drew the fib. I was like, that
Mhm.
might be the top of the candle. Like, yeah, like drawing them quick is really where it's at. And then the next candle opened red, and I was like, shit, that's ad zone, technically.
Yeah.
Might come down here, might even come down here, but I know that my stop will be pretty short after that. But like I had by that time, and you mentioned RSI coming, like, I think at this point it was that kind of this little dip back. I just
Mhm.
thought that the indicators would carry me up, and so I felt confident on this trade. I really did.
Yeah, cause I mean, if you look at it, you had the RSI right here do the cross, and then 2 bars later you had TTM sellers getting out of the way.
Yeah,
If you look up, you got volume building up, buyers coming in, and
yeah,
then finally you get the MACD over like between 4 to 5 bars, or yeah,
yeah,
because from right here, from like these two candles right here to these two candles, you get all that action.
yeah,
Where you got
absolutely.
that, the TTM, the volume, but you wouldn't have noticed that if you don't have a way of reading that, you know what I'm saying? And usually it's RSI first. RSI
Yeah.
would be the first indicator, or maybe the Bollinger Band, because they kind of line up. See how it's going outside the range, and then
Yeah.
you look down here and it's going outside the range, so you just gotta wait for it to come back into the normal range, create a higher low off that range, or somewhere, somewhere in that zone
Yeah.
right there. And as soon as you see a higher low, even if you see, because this wave was still down, right? So it wasn't basing yet. So right here, where it was this candle right here, these two candles,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't basing, so it still had room down to go and touch it again.
True.
Um, but you would have thought, or what my thought process would be, okay, if I enter here, then I have that drawdown still.
Yeah.
Possibility where you can add more,
Mm-hmm.
but you would want to see RSI definitely create a higher low and not cross back below this average line right here.
Yeah. And like I can't remember. I know I was watching Bollinger Bands to wait and see the initial setup because you wait for like a big candle to close below, maybe a hammer and some candles opening inside. So like by the time I entered, it was basing out pretty good, but I just can't remember if like I happened to notice that at the time.
hmm If you see it basing out, then your next thought is, okay, RSI should do a higher low, and if it
Yeah.
does, then you should be okay. Now that's two, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you have the TTM getting out. That's three. Volume, you can see it coming in, but there's the volume consolidation zone would probably be right here. After that, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I got a question actually, because my other catalyst really was down here, the MACD starting to close
Mhm.
up. And like, granted, it hadn't closed up that much, but it kind of did. I entered like right here, and that's a pretty nice progression. And I found that with this kind of RSI look, and I learned this from you, and I hope that like I'm not getting it twisted, but like after this RSI look, to see this thing, what you call it, moving towards it,
Close in. Yeah.
yeah, like yeah, closing in. I mean, it works really nicely.
It does, and that's how you can kind of anticipate it.
Yeah.
Because especially like if you see the RSI and then you look down and you see the MACD closing in,
Hmm.
then you're like, okay, is there another one coming in? Another one. So it might be closing in, right? And then you right before it closes in, you see the TTM sellers going out the way. So then you're a little bit more confident
Yeah.
that the MACD is gonna have the cross.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it does have the cross, your first goal, if you get in right here in this area, your first target should be at the 50 RSI.
Yeah.
Unless it looks like this, right? If the candles keep looking like that, keep going up,
Hmm.
then stay in.
Yeah.
But I would lock in 75% at the 50 RSI.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Lock in 50 or 75%, let one ride.
Hmm.
And then if you see the other candles producing like bearish signal down,
Yeah.
stop out
Yeah.
somewhere, or you can attach. Like I usually do, is I have my second target at the 200
Hmm.
already out, the fishing order already out, and I'll attach it to a moving average. Right here is a little hard, just because the moving averages would have been all jumbled up right here
Yeah.
where you got out.
And like I've been trying to figure this out with my setup. Like, I want to see. So I've been doing this for a week, so I don't have any data about it except for just little observations over the week. Is just like how moving average stacking affects the setup. Also related to the size of the dump out, etc. Because these moving averages are very close together and they're technically stacked bearish. Got the 200 up here. the 100 right here with the 50 right beneath it, and the 50 separates and goes, you know what I mean? And like they continue to stack bearish and are separating a lot. And then there's where it breaks down. So like I don't know yet about like the details of how moving average stacking are affecting this setup. But that is something I will look at.
Yeah, definitely, because it follows the flow,
Uh-huh.
especially like between the 50 and the 100, and then the 100 and the 200, and then the 200 and the 666.
Oh, and you know what? I'm noticing that, okay, so it contacted the 50. Awesome. Contacted the 50. Awesome. And when the 50 and the 100 separated, it contacted the 100. And then it had, and then once that was settled, it went up to the 200 and then flopped out. That's not something that I would have realized at the moment, but I can't help but notice it now. So that's sort of like where that bearish moving average stacking like finally decided.
And that's where I kind of want to take you. You said you wanted to just do one setup,
Yeah.
but if we add another setup that fits good within that setup,
Mm-hmm.
you can have two setups within one, within one trade, and you can do two trades off of one little trading range or one little trend.
I'm down. Yeah, I'm totally up for that. Do you mean you want to do that like within the space of this challenge or the next couple months?
Yeah, definitely. Like,
Cool.
so you have this setup, you already honed it in a little bit, you're getting more confident.
Yeah.
Next, we can throw in the SMAs and or the moving averages, so you can be okay. And now I know if I get in at the 50% fib and I get out the 161, okay, that's that play, right? So you did that trade.
Yeah.
But now price action is at the 50 SMA or it's above the 50 SMA. It looks like it's going to go to the 100 EMA or
Yeah, that's a
right?
EMA. Yeah.
So then you're like, okay, so then the next step up is a 200 EMA. So let me look for a pullback from the
Mm-hmm.
100 EMA. Look at maybe it'll pull back to the 50 SMA and then bounce up to go back up and tag the 200.
Well, also in this, like as far as that pullback to the 200 play, like I mean, the pullback goes to my initial ad zone from the fib. So like, and there's a volume beat, what you call it. I mean, I don't know what else. I don't know what other indicators to look for, but it's interesting that like, it always happens in the ad zone. It's just like 50, 100, 200. This is stuff that I wouldn't have noticed while looking at this chart because and I'm glad you bring this up. I would like to learn more about moving averages while we go through this because looking at this now, it makes it really clear how the moving average is dictated a lot.
And not only that, but you'll see how price action sometimes wants to pull down that moving average so it can make it easier to mount it.
Ah, yeah,
So like if it has a pullback, you can know, be like, oh, okay, we're above the 100. So it wants to pull the 200 down a little bit. So it's gonna pull back. So it's gonna bust through the 100, right?
mm-hmm.
And then price action will pull back down to the 100, and you can use that as a confirmation sometimes, depending on what the trading trend or price action trend is
Yeah,
in. Um, but you can use that as a confirmation that it's gonna go back up because it pulled down the 200 right with that last pullback.
right.
Um, and that's if it's coming from the top though. That's where it also depends. Like right here, most of the moving averages are at the bottom. But even then, the pullback's gonna pull down the 200, so price action can jump up and hit it, and then
Yeah.
either gonna reject there, and that's where you would lock in. So you would get in the pullback, and then lock in 75% at the 200,
Mm-hmm.
and wait for a pullback or do a trailing stop or whatever your stop strategy is, and then maybe put a fishing order out, maybe 2 points above it or at the 200. Is that your 200%? Right
So
above the 161?
161. This is 200 right here.
Yeah, so put your fishing order out there, and if it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit. You get profit stopped. You don't want to put your stop way down here where you probably had it in the entry, right? If you would
Right.
have got in on this one, you wouldn't want your you wouldn't want your entry down. You wouldn't want your stop down here. As soon as you hit your first target right
Yeah.
here, then you want to move this. You want to move that up somewhere up here.
You could attach it to the 100 because if what you want is like amount of the 200 SMA, then the 200 could be it, or
Yeah,
maybe at the very lowest. I mean, the 100 could be it, or at the very lowest, like the 50 or something.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Anything above wherever you got in right here, right? Anything above there.
Yeah.
So ultimately, yeah, you're gonna give more back, but you might also hit your target too.
Right.
So it depends how tight you want to play it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I get it.
definitely, you like I said, you could have had this trade right here, and then later on be like, okay, I'm waiting for my next setup. Okay, now I see something setting
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Let me. And you won't need more than 2 or 3 setups. You'll only be trading 3 to 5 trades max. I recommend 4. And then set your goals, and then we'll we'll set your goals, your daily goals, and then your contract size,
Yeah.
your risk management, and then yeah, we'll go from there.
Cool.
Because you got another trade.
Yeah. I mean, I've got
Any
like some.
questions? Yeah, go for it.
I got so many. Uh,
Um, are you talking about Hotball Kev asked, how do you add the moving average 666 to the chart? Are you talking about Ninja Trader, or are you talking about TOS? TOS, you go into the studies. Let me share my screen. Do you have your TOS up, LasagnaCat?
yeah, that's me. Do you want me to talk about this trade?
Hold on, there's a question. He wants to know how to add 666.
Oh yeah, take your time.
Um, let me share my screen real quick.
I mean, the quick answer is it's just like any other average, or sorry, moving average. It's an SMA is what Connor recommended we add. So just like you have a 200 SMA or 100, whatever you want, whatever you use, 50, you just change the period to 666.
Yep.
I think Semper's going to walk through it real quick, but
Yep.
it's
Thank
nothing
you.
super fancy. Connor's just saying that that particular period has some interaction with the price action.
Yeah, simple moving average. So you go to simple moving average, you double click on it, you go back down and you look for it, which should be down here. Uh, Go to the gear. And instead of the length, you want to change it to 666. And then whatever you do, color, dashed, solid. Hit OK. I'm going to hit cancel. Then you hit apply. It's going to apply it. Mine's this one. Cool.
Right now, we're looking at LasagnaCat screen. I don't know if you were
Yeah, it's still mine.
trying to show us.
Oh, shit. I lost you guys.
No,
I thought I was sharing. Are you guys sharing?
We can
no.
hear you. We
Yeah,
can't
we can.
see you.
Yeah, we can hear you, but it's still my screen.
I said I was sharing. That's weird.
Well, Kevin
Whatever.
looks like he's says he got it. So I don't know
All
if you
right.
want to keep going or not.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, cool. So this is my second trade of the challenge. First day on Tuesday, also a winner. and it looks really similar to the other one, very similar. So same deal. Like this happened right after the open. It's like, what happened at the open? Big dump out. That's my first heads up. It's like my setup is based on there being a dump out first. So there's a big, huge dump out candle, and then here, and then at around I don't remember what the what the support was on SPY. Um, but I'll just I don't know. I think it was messing around with its 200 SMA. And who knows, maybe some other stuff. So at any rate, so I was looking at Bollinger Bands, and it was already an overcool RSI. So it was like overcooled from 50, which is weird. Anyway, it went below the 30 here with overcool. And so I was looking at Bollinger Bands. And so big dump candle outside of Bollinger Bands. This one closed outside Bollinger Band. This one up. And then they start opening inside. At that point, I already noticed my RSI crossover arrow. Also, that's a heads up indicator. You know, it's just a heads up indicator. It might amount to something, it might not. But RSI overcooled to recover. So at that point, I'm like, all right, what's happening with MACD? This is the same chart over here. This is 1 minute MES, but I just wanted to blow up the MACD a little bit to show it closer. So this is what RSI looked like, recover overcool. Going for a little pullback. MACD is closing up. I did my entry here, so that's the first red candle. So look, it's the first red candle here. That's what MACD was looking like, you know, right in this area. So, but let me go back a little bit. When I saw this first red pullback candle, I mean, it looked like the same as this. It was a bit of a weird look, but I thought, hell, that's my first red pullback. I'll just fib from there. And so like, I didn't, when these other candles were forming, I wasn't just like, oh, let me get in. I was like, let me wait until I see RSI and MACD look the way that I want them to look. And then, you know, and then I'll make sure, and then I'll feel confident about my ad zone, which is here. At that point, check out, so you see this big green, check out what it did. Nice volume beat over these. These opening range, pullback, dump out, whatever, these big volumes, I didn't care about those. When I saw this, I was like, yep, that's the volume I like to see. Little note aside is I'm not sure how volume plays in with this setup exactly. More to come on that. I'm taking notes. So I got in at the top of this ad zone here. It screwed around for a couple of candles, never closed below the 50. I really like the look of that. And then it just caught speed, you know. At the time this candle hit, I mean, RSI had already done its higher low over the moving average. And it went up. It didn't even really screw around. It just went up to my target. It did a little of this stuff, but whatever. It went up here. I only had one target in mind, but when you draw a fib, oh, and by the way, that was the 200. The reason why I picked the 200 and not the 161, I picked the 200 just because like that's where there was like this nice moving average, what you call it, like shit, what's the word? Like confluence right here. And also this is just the 21 moving average. So I was like, why would it stop there necessarily if there's these juicier ones up here? So that was my profit. And this went up to the 300 fib and then it dumped down. So I feel like that's an awesome trade. There's one thing I want to show you guys on a slightly different slide related to this. This is the SPY chart. Like this is what you call MES, but this is the SPY chart, 5 minute. The reason why I wanted to show, oh, this was my bad. The when I did my trade, this was the support, 100 moving average on the 5 minute. But and this is where I got out. Like, right here. The reason I got my SPY chart is look where it rejected, went under the 50 on RSI and hit its head on the 50, and it just dumped out, like straight down. God damn it, for like 15 minutes. Jesus. So, that's just a little something to note, SPY hitting its head on the 50.
And that's what sometimes I use as confirmation is okay, if it busts through how it
Yeah,
did, the RSI busted through the 50,
right.
and then it kind of just waited for something, and then came back and hit it, confirmed that it's gonna go down.
Yeah,
Especially with the moving averages, the way they're stacking up right there, crossing over.
yeah,
Um, but over here on your trade, do you notice how it busted through the 21 and then it kind of shies the 50, comes back down, hits the 21, goes back up and tags the 50 and whatever
yeah,
else.
yeah. The 50 and then the 200.
And that's the way it'll be, especially if they're spread out a lot.
Uh-huh.
So while you're doing your RSI MACD, um, pay attention to where the moving averages are.
Yeah,
So you can slowly start adding that. So
yeah.
like that you can be okay. And now you can reference it, you know. And then you
Mhm.
can have almost like a tentative target where you'll either use your fib or your moving average.
Yeah.
Because if you start to see candles look a particular way, because that's another thing you need to kind of start practicing is how do the candles look
Hmm.
in those areas and how do they start developing.
Yeah.
Um, because that's where you're going to be able to identify continuation or reversal.
Right.
Cool.
Good.
What's that little green arrow you have down there right
Oh,
below the N? Yeah.
yeah, right here. This is that's a study called RSI crossover. Um, and so like it's funny if you go and look at like the regular RSI study on TOS, you can actually enable these little arrows that happen in the RSI, what you call it, RSI, study. But this is a separate one that's specifically called RSI crossover, and that then you can get the arrows up in your price action. And so that's really just a heads up indicator. It doesn't like mean like, it's not like green light says go or anything like that. It's just like it's one of those heads up things like, okay, start looking for the setup. And the cool thing about it is like I noticed that it often triggers successfully with undercool, provided that, you know, you wait a little bit and see how MACD's looking and that the support is good. I have some other examples where the green arrow means absolutely nothing. But combined with other catalysts, it's just like a good heads up. It's one of those things where you're like, okay, I got a green arrow. Now I want to see da da da. Like I want to see
Yeah, start
RSI
paying
recover.
attention. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just part of the potential story. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, it's called RSI crossover, and it's
Okay, cool.
yeah, no doubt. Um,
Hey,
oh, and
LasagnaCat, what day was this?
day. This is Tuesday
Okay,
19th. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh, and just a heads up, I don't know if Semper's listening at the moment, but we're a third of the way through our record time. The Zoom account only lets us do an hour and a half record time.
Got it.
Um, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we're 30 minutes into the record time. Okay, so I'll just queue up my next one. I think my next one is a red, but there's a lot to learn from it. Where are we at? Okay, yeah, red from Tuesday. Um, so this was after that trade, that nice green trade. This was like the next dump out of price action. Um, it actually could have been a nice winner, but not a nice winner, but like a couple points scalp up to the 100. So what happened was a big dump out to some kind of support. I don't have a my SPY chart for it. But RSI had been overcooled for a minute, and then it was like working on recovering it. Got one of those arrows. So it was like, we got candles opening up in the Bollinger Bands. We got the little heads up arrow, RSI crossover arrow. We got RSI recovering overcool. Um, this might have just been some real, like, what you call it, sneaky stuff. Because I remember I was listening to the Zoom, the chat, the stream rather, and like no one really had like a really clear read up here. But I did notice something important that I want to share. Um, so it hit my ad zone really well, you know, golden pocket actually. So I got in at the top of it and it went up to the 100. So that's cool. And it was just the 21. So I was like, man, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't like dip down and go up to the what you call it, the 161. But it was futzing around up here. And I was like, what's gonna happen? And then like it goes a little bit below my trend line because I had this nice trend line that looked all right. But then it started creeping below it. And I was like, what the fuck? So if you look over here on the right, I made this note exit signal. What happened was while the trade was looking good, the RSD looked nice. And the RSI, and then it came over here. Then it made a lower high. And I was like, yo, if it crosses under after that lower high, this might not work at all. Like it just might not work. And I was noticing that this was closing up as well. MACD, it's MACD on top. Actually, let me retract that. I don't think it actually was at that point. No, MACD still kind of looked good. Let me retract that. This is what I was really going off because I remember when I saw this, it struck me like a lightning bolt. It shied the 50 and then made a lower high. So I was like, what? And then I was like, when it crosses under, it's game over. And this is where it crossed under over here on the left. This candle, that's where it crossed under. And I was like, I should really get out right here. And I was like, let me wait just one more second, which is just like sometimes that's the kiss of death. So the one more second was this dump candle and I got played out. But that's all right because like I learned a good lesson to maybe look for this indicator, lower high and then to cross under on RSI. It completely took the whole thing down, or at least that was the indicator. So again, I was like 1 second away from making this awesome exit, but instead I got caught up in the next one. But whatever, I got a good lesson out of that. So that was like, I think one of two reds this week. I probably placed like 8 or 9 trades this week. So that was my first red. And if I had taken it off 1 second earlier, when I was like, hey, I should take it off, that would have been a green. That would have been a profit stop. But we play them the way we play them. But that's it for that one. That was a red I really didn't mind taking. Looks like Semper's got his mic muted, so he's probably oh,
No,
here.
right.
Oh, okay, cool.
I got a cough today, so kind of mute myself so I'm not coughing.
Oh yeah, no worries. Did you hear all that I
Yeah,
broke?
yeah, I got that.
Okay.
What's this moving average right here, right below the top Bollinger Band?
Top Bollinger Band. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was the 21. I didn't think it would have that big an influence.
yeah, I wouldn't have. Well,
Yeah,
I wouldn't have thought. The only thing that would have kind of told me was that top Bollinger Band resistance.
yeah.
As if it was gonna squeeze up, the price action would have been at the bottom Bollinger Band.
Oh shit, all the way down here.
Yeah.
Is it also significant that these two are so close together?
Yep.
Right. Yeah, and like I was getting my funny feeling here, and then like I'll bet you that if I had noticed this RSI look, and if I had like had the insight about the Bollingers, I probably wouldn't have waited that 1 extra second before I got out, because the 1 extra second cost me that, and
And,
like,
and then the RSI is created a lower high.
yep, lower high to cross under, and it just pew.
Yeah, right there. As soon as you seen that lower high, because it shied. What's that top line? Is that the 50?
Yeah, it shied the 50.
And it created a lower high. I noticed that last 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes it'll shy the 50, like right before a big move.
Yeah,
And it does it from the top too. Because I caught a couple big moves going from the top.
right. Yeah,
Where it look exactly like yours looks, but inverted, going up.
sure. Yeah.
Um, like I said, sometimes you gotta target the 50. The 50 R, I mean the RSI will tell you where your target is, because if you see the RSI kind of slowly moving up and your target it's like the 161, right? And you're
Yep.
like, well, I don't know if it's gonna make it. Well, look at the RSI to see where the position of it is. Does it still have headroom to keep going up? Or
Right.
if it doesn't, then you might be already, it might be exhausting. So it might be a pullback. So you might need to be more aware of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like, meaning that if it shies it, you really need to watch what the price action looks like as it's shying it.
Yeah, because right where it created this, right where it created this, where it created this little line right here
Where's that? Yeah.
on the right over here. See it over
Yeah.
here?
Uh-huh.
Right where it created this and it shied it,
Mm.
you want to see a higher low. You don't want to see. So it did kind of create it, but then you're like, okay, you're telling yourself, okay, I want it to go higher than this. If it
Yeah.
doesn't go higher than this,
Yeah.
then okay, it's gonna create a lower high
Right.
and go down.
And
And
that
that's exactly what it did. It created, here's a high and here's a lower high, and then it dumped.
right. And it's like, and if you watch it that way, you definitely do know what you want to see because it's like you're like, all right, cool. It did make a higher low, but then it made a lower high. So what's your next question got to be? Well, if it made a lower high after shying the 50, I don't want to see it cross under.
Yeah.
If I do see it cross under, I'm out.
Yep. Yep.
If it bounces it, well, cool. We could wait a little bit while longer, maybe. But it's
Maybe
still, you know,
if it crosses back over, or say it reverses, right? Say it reverses right here. Say it, instead of going down way down here,
right,
say it reversed right here, and you're like, oh fuck, I fucked up. It went
right,
against me.
sure,
then you would just wait for it to climb up above the 50 RSI, and
yeah,
then you're okay. Where's price action at now? Okay, now it looks like it's going back up into an uptrend.
right,
Now I'm waiting for a pullback down to the 50 RSI, hold the 50 right here,
yeah,
and then see what the MACD looks like. If it's closing in on the average,
hmm,
like that,
yeah,
then you're like, okay, it has a good chance of holding the 50. Um, and then you can either fib it out if that's what you do, or if the Bollinger Band is there, lines up, or if there's a moving average there that lines up.
yeah,
That's gonna make that 50 support a little bit more possible.
right, yeah, for sure,
And then you can predict it to get in, or you can wait for your confirmation candle to get in.
yeah, no doubt.
Whatever you use.
And that's why I'm really enjoying the MACD because like since the RSI has a lot more different movements, it's like when you get that like RSI look, you get to like check MACD out to see if it's agreeing to see like it's funny because this has smaller movements and this has broader movements.
Mhm.
Um, but then when you see the smaller movements pulling the broader movements into a certain direction, um, it becomes a lot clearer. Because
Yep.
just like you said, it could have bounced off the moving average here in RSI and just sort of like jerked around back up. Um, but
Yeah, because look at like 2 or 3 minutes before, like 10, 17, 18. They actually went a smidge under the average and then popped up.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, you don't know if it's going to do the same thing or dump like it did. I mean, I wouldn't beat yourself up too much over this because it did. I remember this candle. It was a complete dump out of nowhere. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
look
was
at the
like half a
volume
second.
even.
Yeah, for sure. And that was like a split second dump candle too. It was like, and that was on my mind. I was like, let me see this next candle. If it doesn't look strong enough, I'll bounce. But it was like, pew, like couldn't go fast.
Totally.
It was one of those attitude candles.
That's the hurt your feelings candle.
Yep, bad attitude style. I've got one more trade from Tuesday. It's a green. It's a nice one. Want to check that out?
Yeah, I probably got one more. I gotta jump on a call. I got a
All
meeting
right, right
coming
on.
in.
So dur, dur, dur. What do we got? Let me shoot. My bad, my bad. All right, so this is all right. So up here you see where that one failed. That's that big awful red candle. So I was like, whatever. If it's dumping like that, maybe it'll keep dumping down to support. And it did. It actually dumped down to a weekly pin on MES, and those are a big deal. Um, so it came up from there. And again, a pretty good Bollinger Band look, RSI overcool. This is all stuff that I look for, wanting it to recover overcool. Um, at this point in the RSI, which is here, at that point in the RSI, MACD was already going for the cross, which looked real good. And this created what you call it, a higher low. Awesome. So at that point, or at this point, I draw my fib down from this red pullback, nice red pullback, created a nice little ad zone. And when I saw it screwing around and come down the ad zone, I bought the bid. Awesome. Um, volume just kind of looked like that. I wasn't paying much attention to it. And I had a real smooth run up to again the 200. Um, I picked the 200 because it coincided with a 100 fib from I don't know. I think it was a data candle from pre-market data sometime in the last couple of weeks. But I thought that's a real nice confluence. And we've got a standard dev line here, and those often screw around a little bit and then like come down a little bit. So I thought it would be all right. Um, and that one worked well. Um, I don't have a whole lot to say about this one, except that it really worked well according to the system. My setup, and my setup seems to work really well when it's a dump down to new lows. This was also a dump down to new lows, but it just, it didn't work out as we discussed. But this one was new lows and it worked out, perfectly. Um, so I was definitely not mad at that. If anyone has any questions, things to point out, feel free.
I mean, that one too, you have a support line at your weekly pin, which was a perfect bounce, like to the penny
Yeah,
on the big red candle. So that was pretty nice.
yeah, it
But
was.
then you waited for confirmation to
Yeah,
get in. So that was
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely paid attention to the lessons on this one, and and also a couple new flavors as well, like the little crossover arrow did fire on that. And I'm also keeping in mind stuff that Semper has taught us about Bollinger Bands. Um, the Bollinger Bands are really good heads up indicators as well, I'm finding. Although I think they represent a lot more than just that as well. I'm just not I don't know the finer points of Bollinger Bands real well, but I know that they're starting to figure in with what I'm doing. Which is really cool. Uh I have my SPY chart for that for some reason. Let's see. Let's look at the SPY. Oh, my bad. That's for a different day. Shoot, that's a good trade too. Um, let's see. 418 instead of 3. Sorry, you guys. I got some of my stuff screwed up here. Yeah, this was Tuesday. All right, let me close up Tuesday and go to Wednesday. Oh, wait, that is Wednesday. Shit, sorry, guys. Um, That was that one. Sorry, friends, I'm kind of glitching here. What you call it? Wednesday was the grind up day, so no trades for me. That felt actually really fucking awesome because I just like, this is a choppy day. It's got nothing to do with me. I remember thinking to myself, if it dumps down in this moving average, I'll look for my setup. If it doesn't dump down in this moving average, then I'm just gonna like fucking not even think about anything. And so I got to just take a walk in the park. I watched it for about this long and I was like, cool, I'm shutting down my platform. I just listened to the stream, picked up a few bits of insight, and it was all good. So that was Wednesday. No trades on Wednesday. What else do I got? 420. All right. I didn't take a trade on this day, Wednesday, or Thursday rather. Yeah, yesterday. But I took some notes because I mostly use my setup as a after a dump down to new lows. And on this one, it was a higher low created from lows. So that's interesting. I'm taking notes on like if I can play the setup in that situation. Because usually I would wait for it to like dump like down here, you know, or at least down here, and then look for the setup. But on this one, it bases at a higher low from here. And then it plays the setup like pretty perfectly, you know, like you'll notice there's no RSI crossover arrow. And let me get rid of that. And also there's no RSI overcool. I don't know, there might be a correlation between that, there might not. But there was definitely, because this would have been my entry, you know, after seeing the base, it coming up and down, like that would have been my entry. But again, it's not a dump to new lows, so I don't know yet if this is included in my setup. Also, I'm not sure if Semper is coming back. He said he has a call to jump on, so maybe I'll just go on for a few. Oh, Semper, do you need to like jump on the call?
Yeah, I gotta jump off right now, but you guys can continue talking. If you guys have any questions, or might be able to jump back in. But I gotta jump on a call real
All right,
quick.
cool. So like, yeah, I'll just run through the rest of my trades from the week. I mean, there's really only like tomorrow's to do after this. But also any questions that you guys might have for me on like what it's like going through these first couple weeks of the challenge or whatever, or just like any other questions about the setup, just let me know.
Hey, Lasagna, I have a question.
Yeah,
Do you think forming your rules as a question has helped you kind of walk you through and have your, the internal conversation through your trade?
absolutely, absolutely. So we all need to have trading rules. And at the same time, we also all have a conversation going on in our minds when we're either like waiting for a setup, watching the market, when we're in a setup, all that. And the conversation that you have in your mind can often be a negative one based on FOMO, like, oh, I don't want to miss the move. Oh, there's money to be made. Oh, is this trade going to work out? Oh, damn, I've been missing trades all week, da, 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 like all that. And I'm going to bring up Semper, your rules that you posted the other day, because Semper just asked if it's been helping for me to like pose my rules as questions. And this is something I've never seen anyone before Semper actually do, is like, instead of the rule being like, wait for a red pullback, it's a question. Is there a first red pullback? You know, it's not wait for a first red pullback. It's, is there a first red pullback? The reason why questions are good instead of like little like statement rules is that questions create the conversation, and then that becomes the voice in your head. It's a conversation just about the trade coming into focus. So I'll use one of my trades as an example, and I'll kind of do rules as questions, because like when you do it like this, here's the trade I took today that I really liked. Where the hell is it? All right, this is a perfect example. So like, okay, so let's say my rules are like, this setup has to start with a dump to new lows. The setup has to start, and then like RSI overcool. What you call it, Bollinger Bands, MACD. Like, let's say those are my rules. So instead of being like the rules being like RSI must be overcool, like MACD needs to be closing in, you talk yourself through questions. So here goes. So it's like dump, all right, big dump. And so I'm like, is there a big dump happening? Yes, there is. All right, cool. What do I want to see like as that dump forms? Well, I'd love to see a dump to new lows. It dumped to new lows, and it caught some support on SPY. And also right here is a huge SPY volume beat. And matter of fact, I had like a really nice what you call it, level mapped out on SPY. So I was like, all right, cool. All right, what do I want to see next? I want to see RSI overcool recover overcool. Like I want to see that next. And it's not like RSI overcool is like, it's not statements. It's is RSI recovering overcool? Because when you ask yourself that question, you get to give it an answer. And when you're asking yourself questions and giving it answers, your mind doesn't have room for FOMO statements like, oh, I want to fucking get the trade, or like, I missed my last 2 trades, blah, like all that shit like that. When does that help you? Like never. Even if you want to trade, talking to yourself like that, you got in a bad mental habit and stressed yourself out. So doing rules as questions creates a dialogue inside your mind that eclipses all that worrying shit. So it's like, yeah, I'd like to see a higher low. Boom, a higher low. All right, I would like to see a red pullback. And look, and I was like, and look up there, nice red pullback. Boom. All right, I would like to see that create. Oh, my bad. Turn that off. I got the crossover in RSI. I'd like to see MACD separating, and there it goes. So it's like, what you do is like, is MACD separating? What does MACD look like? And it's like, well, let me answer that. It's separating. That looks good. And it's like, okay, has it pulled back to my ad zone? No, it hasn't, but it might. Let's see if it does. And then I'll get in because all this other stuff looks good. And then boom, it went in. And it's just like, there's no question. It like, at that point, to get in the trade because the conversation has led you to that. And it wasn't a conversation about, oh, I don't want to miss it. Like it wasn't a bullshit conversation. It was a conversation based on objective questions and objective answers. And look, it just like, it didn't even wait to go up. It just fucking, those are the candles you want to see. And that trade made me really, really happy. I can tell you that. That one was from today. Real good. And when you walk yourself through rules asked as questions, just your mindset really changes because you don't have space for anxious thoughts. And you can take that from me because I've dealt with a lot of anxiety things over life, like I've kind of been through all the worrying shit, to this day. And this is really helping me a lot. And any questions, just let me know. Meanwhile, I'll take you to the paper cut trade I had today. That one I just showed you, that was from later on. That was my 3rd trade of the day. I just wanted to show you because it's a perfect example of how like asking yourself questions, question-based rules really helps you with your mindset.
I think one thing real quick too that you just said,
yeah,
which when I mean, I'm just coming around to, but I still screw up sometimes. But when you follow your rules, at least for me, if I follow my rules and things go as planned and I have a really good trade, I feel good about myself. And you just said that too.
Right.
And there's something that just, when you follow your plan and things come to fruition, it seems like it feeds on itself.
Yeah.
And it further even keeps you away from any type of revenge trading or doing anything else stupid where you might, give back profits or have a bad red trade because you're in a bad mindset. So I think that it all just kind of feeds on itself when you're doing things right. And I think that's important just from a mental perspective. So I'm glad to
Yeah,
hear it's happening to you too.
absolutely. Because like, it gives you a good, clean feeling, like for lack of a better word. Because like today I missed I had a no fill on one of the trades that I did. It was or plans. And it was right before that one, like this one here that worked out awesome. It was this one right here. And I had planned this beautiful trade, right? And my entry was right in the middle of this ad zone. It missed it by 5 cents and went up. Now, the fact that I was following my rules and having that nice conversation and like wasn't in the mindset of like, yo, the market stresses me out. Like I was able to miss this trade and not feel too bad about it. Cause like I knew I was like doing all right. You know, I thought the move went up according to the question-based story I was telling myself. The fact that it didn't pick me up, like I can live with that. It's still proof that's going to work out later. And since I didn't feel bad about missing this, my mind was clear for when this one presented itself. And I just got in no problem because I did the same question-based story for rules, and then boom, it went up. Before I tried the question, what you call it, approach, missing this one would have pissed me off so fucking badly. And by the time this one came around, I would have like been making weird, wacky entries. I might have even tried to enter up here or some crazy shit. Cause like missing a trade historically has like made me incredibly angry. And it doesn't need to be that way. And I want to trade for the rest of my life. And I don't want to be an angry, anxious person for the rest of my life. It's probably not even worth it. So the idea is to be a happy trader. And so I believe I'm going in the very right direction with that. So I'll just go back to my first trade of the day, paper cut red. I don't have my entry here, but it was here. So here's where I confused myself, and here's where I can refine my rules. When this red candle happened, I was like, hey, is that my dump out? Because my trades are based on a dump out first. And I was trying to convince myself that these were dump outs. I don't know what got into me really. I guess I was just really wanting to trade or something, whatever it was. And like, I was like, yeah, that's a dump out. Don't worry about it, you know? And it's silly because what you call it, RSI didn't look great at all, It even hit its head on the 50. This was not a well thought out trade, and I broke a few rules, which is okay because it actually addresses a rule that I was wondering about, which is what constitutes a dump out. One could say that this obviously doesn't constitute a dump out, that this doesn't, and that this doesn't. And I would agree with that. But earlier this morning, I wasn't sure because I saw higher lows. They're small, but I saw higher lows happening. And that kind of hypnotized me a bit. I saw this trend line break and kind of retest. So I drew a fib from up here and I was like, let me add right here, top of my ad zone. And a little while after I entered that trade, I was like, you know what? I think I'm fucking kidding myself. Like, I really think I'm just taking myself for a little ride here. Something in my subconscious is still not comfortable with the idea of winning, something like that. You got to call out your subconscious and stuff like that. I think Mark Douglas talks about that a lot in Trading in the Zone. It's a must read or audiobook, must hear. So on this candle, I got out for just a 50-cent paper cut. And at that time, I was also like, oh, right. And they're also going to fucking do what you call it, data in just a minute. And who knows what's going to happen there. But yeah, I took a little paper cut red. And so I made two new rules. One, it helped me to clarify what a dump out is. Seems obvious now, but this morning I was confusing myself. There is no dump out here, very clear. And my other rule for this setup that I just crystallized for myself this morning is don't buy inside of a chop zone. This was clearly just chopping before news or data or whatever. So don't buy and chop. Even if you think you see the setup, if it's chopped, just fucking if it's stuck in a range, yeah, you don't have nothing to do with it. So I got myself a new rule today, and it only cost me half a point. So
Yeah, no, the RSI is just lingering around 50 for sure.
yeah. And the thing that I was trying to convince myself, I was watching RSI and I was like, okay, it made the cross. And it's not immediately dumping under the 50, like it's kind of cruising. It did that for like a candle or two. And then by the time it was like over here, I was like, I don't know. I don't know exactly what candle it was on RSI. But yeah, when it got to over here, I was like, this is fool's gold. It's not even fool's gold, it's garbage. I'm out. um and yeah, and so that was my trading week in terms of trades. And like, also, if anyone wants to chime in about anything about it, please be my guest. It's just like, it's great hearing from folks. I also had another green and like I completely lost.
Hey,
Right.
Lasagna, real quick.
Yeah, please.
It's not actually off your trade. I'm just curious, how did you get on your RSI? How do you
Yeah.
get the second line on there
Um,
in
let's see.
TOS?
Oh, the TOS. You mean this like orange guy?
Yeah, so you can actually see across.
Yeah. So one of the premium members, Tidan, Tidan. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. A few weeks ago, one of our other members, I forget who it was, got permission. So Titan wrote that script. One of the premium members, Titan, wrote that script. And Chris, also known as Flux, asked him if he could share it with us. And Titan said yeah. And so now it's available. If you go in the futures chat, March 31st, Chris C put a link to the study.
Awesome.
And yeah, and it's fantastic. The 50 is hard coded in there, and the crossover 2 lines are in there, and you can of course color them, configure them any way you want. And you can also turn on the crossover arrows that appear in the study. So like, I'm really into that study. So thanks again, Titan, and thanks Chris C for the heads up. Yeah, awesome. And I look at it all day. I look at it all day. Anyways, I had like one more textbook awesome green trade. I can't remember from what day, but I'll try and locate it real quick. And if I can't, then whatever. Oh, here it goes. Is this from fucking Tuesday as well? I don't know. I might have gotten my days mixed up. But let me just show you guys this one other green that I had. So example 3. I don't know. I might be bugging here. No, my bad. I already showed that one. Yeah, I already showed that. So I mean, that really is it. You know, that's it for my trades. Although although I might have some other notes to share. Because like, I have learned a lot this week, and I've been in elites for a long time, since it started, and I still haven't. I've really struggled to get consistency. It's been like often painful. It's been discouraging. You know, never give up. That's the motto. You know, but like, it's been a long time for me to like find my way, so to speak. And this is really helping clarify things for me, because like, I was in the purgatory of like gaining money, losing money for so long, and like, and I just want out of that. You know, I want to be profitable already. I want this to work. Yeah. And so this is really helping. Like, this is clarifying so much. And Semper, I traded a paper. I shared a paper cut right here where I only took half a point off. Half a point loss, and I got to crystallize some of my rules off of it too. So the way I see it is, it's like I paid half a point to get some clearer
Education.
rules. Yeah. And to like, and to like put it towards the rules and the rule conversation, the questions and answers. So it's been, yeah, it was such a good week. So it was this paper cut, whatever, half a point. And then when I got burned on that one candle after the RSI
Yeah.
lower high, that was like the only fucking like red. And this is a paper cut. So it
Yeah.
was like I didn't count, but it was 8 or 9 trades with one really small paper cut and then one like abrupt candle down. Like, sorry, Charlie, you got smoked, you know?
I mean that's the good and the bad of futures where you could get smoked like that. But if you stick to your rules, stick to your um, and that's where having a defined stop loss, if you're not used to that type of movement, can hurt you.
Yeah.
Um, but also if you have that stop loss too tight, you're always gonna get shook out too. So it's twofold with that. But once you find your system and you stick to it, you're gonna have, as long as you have 70% chance or 70% win rate, you're
Right.
gonna have a profitable year.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said, a few weeks ago, where those patterns had like different success rates
Hmm.
of playing out, that combined with your system or stacked on top of those other elite systems is gonna give you that more or that bigger of an edge.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, a lot of good stuff going into it. And I had a couple charts with examples where the green crossover arrows didn't work.
Hmm.
But I don't know what I did with them. And I'm pretty sure this one didn't work. So
Yeah.
like, so take those with a grain of salt. It's just a good heads up along with other indicators.
Yeah.
And man, like that's been my whole week. I mean, do you think there's any other stuff I should bring up about it?
Um, how was your mindset coming in? Was it better than the next week? Has it been improving? Um, and how, because I know that we develop rules as questions, but we should also have definitive rules of, okay, if I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, don't
Yeah,
trade for the first hour or don't trade and, don't trade at
right,
all.
right. Well, the mindset this week has been really, really good. And I gotta say that it's mostly just because having a setup with rules clarifies everything. It's like you don't even even on this trade where I took a paper cut, I was like, if this is gonna go against me, or actually, I just realized I wasn't following my rules, so I got out. It didn't even hurt. Like I
Yeah.
was like, I mean, I was experiencing some kind of FOMO or self-delusion to even get into this. But by the time I was here, I was like, wait a second, guy. Like, get get out of town. This ain't nothing. And like over here, for example, I forget what day this was, but I have this circle here. And on I think even just a week or two ago, I would have been like, Bollinger Bands might be setting up because like what you call it, standard dev centers right there. And look, like MACD like might be closing in. But this week I was like, nah, that doesn't look like anything to me today. Like I'm not
Yeah.
even thinking about that. Like I'm still I'm still just really, really just chilling. Like just
And that's the way that's the kind of mood you want to be in. Like, oh, you see it. Oh, it's outside the Bollinger Band. Let me see if anything looks good. Oh, nothing. Okay, I'm chilling.
exactly. And that felt so good. And then again, I gotta bring up Wednesday again, the grind up day, because I don't know where this worry went this week, but it was just gone. It's like on a day like this one was, I would have been like, oh no, I don't get to trade today. I can't make money. Like trading doesn't work. You can't trade every day. Blah, like,
Yeah.
all this shit. Like, how am I supposed to make money if I can't trade every day? But since it wasn't showing me anything, I just didn't give a shit. Here's my 9 daily and here's my 10 SMA daily. I was like, if they don't dump to either of those, I really don't give a shit. And I was able to just watch all this chop and be like, someone might be making money in it, but it's none of my business. It's not my game. And when you have rules and a setup, it becomes your own game. So
Mm-hmm.
like it's not even worrying about this shit anymore. It's just like,
Yeah.
why would I not play my game? I'm gonna wait for my game. I'm gonna wait for it, I'm gonna wait for it to come to my house where I make the rules.
Yep.
And I do my best to not delude myself that it's happening when it isn't. And that's a skill to be honed in itself.
Yep.
And so I gotta say, a lot more relaxed and just a lot more confident when entering a trade. It's like a couple days ago, Semper, like I entered one long, and I messaged you immediately. I was like, yo, I got in long at and like I did that not just for like, I did that because I was excited about the trade and I was so confident about it.
Yeah.
It was almost like I was saying, yo, check this out. Like I felt that good about it.
Yeah, and that's the way you want to be.
Yeah,
You want to be okay. It's gonna hit my target. I just gotta wait a little bit. Sometimes you wait a little bit longer than others, but as
hmm
long as you see price action holding your rules or holding your levels,
yeah,
stay in the trade. Don't shake out and stick to define. Hopefully, you have a defined stop loss
yeah,
to prevent any big washouts like you experienced.
right,
Um, but that all comes with that's all in that it comes with the territory. So you just
yeah,
gotta be ready. Anybody, and that can happen. You notice Brandon, even him, he's like, oh, I'm gonna enter short, but it might squeeze up. You know, it
yeah,
might squeeze me out, and he knows the risk, and he says, oh, it squeezed me out. I'm out. Boom.
yeah,
He's got his level that he gets out in, and that he's done. And then you'll see him. He'll flip like, okay, now it's confirming long. Now I'm gonna get in. I'm gonna make my money back.
yeah. I mean, it's awesome. It doesn't catch him by surprise
Hmm.
because he's like, just like you said, he's like, this could do this. This could do this at any moment. This could do this, and then it might happen, and then he'll do a reset.
Yep, but he knows his rules. He follows his rules, and he sticks to them when it goes against him. And look, he keeps his red smalls and his greens big, and he you can recoup off of one small red paper cut.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, there was something I wanted to add just about your like a pre-market, the pre-market routine. It's like you shared your rules the other day about your pre-market routine, like about how to looking at the daily and weekly chart for trends and stuff like that. Um, one of the things that I remembered to do was that when you see a big engulfing candle like this one, fib it out and pay particular attention to the 50 fib of that. Because I think it was on this day, I caught a really nice play. It might have been that day, like during this part. I don't quite remember. But I use this level. So it's like when I'm doing, and it actually like, it lined up perfectly with my ad zone for my intraday trade. I forget what trade it was. And it also lined up with the fib of Brandon's, but it's like, yeah, when you're doing your morning routine, getting your charts together, yeah, look out for things like this, because we often look for the half candle of the day that we're at. But if there is an engulfing candle or like a rather large candle, pay attention to that half candle, because I think it was this day and it was gorgeous, 50%. And also I'm a big fan of the time frame moving averages study. Each morning when I'm setting up my charts and looking at daily and weekly trends, I also look where moving averages are on the longer time frames, and I configure my study accordingly so that those will be on my chart, because those come into the picture big time, as we know. And that's just me sharing a couple rules about my morning routine that I'm developing this week as well. Um, and man, I don't know, we've covered a lot. So I have a couple things I'm going to be working on for next week. So keep on studying and looking for indicators for when the setup starts going against you. I talked about that with a couple of my trades this week. So I'm going to pay particular attention on indications that the trade is going against me and try to make rules about getting out according to those. And there's different scenarios for my setup. There's the dump out after the open, there's the dump out to a new low of day, and there's a dump out to a higher low of the original move. I haven't played that third one yet, but I'm keeping an eye on it. But for all three of those scenarios of dumping out, I'm going to pay attention to how indicators might be a little bit different, whatever. And maybe a volume, what you call it, behaves differently.
Hey, something else just to throw your way, maybe as a little homework assignment is something that's helped me is sometimes on a 1 minute chart when you can't find direction, jump
Yeah.
to the 5 or the 30 minute to see how they're looking. Because most of the time when both when the 5 and the 30 minute line up as bullish, it's gonna be a bullish move, even though on the 1 minute it's bearish, right?
Right.
But you kind of gotta like use the RSI
Mm-hmm.
to guide you to those other points, because you might on the 30 minute you might see um the you might see a big green candle coming up to a moving average,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, oh, it's going to be resistance there, and then you go to the 5 and you're not quite at that resistance, but you can see it.
Yeah.
So using longer time frames, I know it's helped Brandon out a lot. Like this week he said the 5 minute has been a lot more clear. It
Okay.
might help you with scalps, and it also might help you stay in trades longer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
um
That sounds fantastic.
Maybe I don't know if Kyle's still here. He might have left. um
Yeah.
but he has I think it's a free indicator for Ninja Trader where it's pretty cool, where see how this big red candle dumped out right here, these two on your chart, these two big red candles on his chart on that indicator, they'll stay green,
Really?
indicating that there's still buyers in control pretty much, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, all right. Yeah. Oh, that's pretty
So
cool.
it's kind of like the ultimate volume study in the
Right.
candle.
Damn, that's nice. So like it's still green, and then lo and behold, there was still a
Yeah,
nice move up.
let's still move up.
Wow. I like that.
And then
Well,
like,
yeah. It
what's
makes
that?
sense too, because like this one did touch down to these moving averages. So it's like you might start eyeing it up anyway, but then
Hmm.
to see it green would be like, oh shit, that's the candle.
Yep. So we'll just do what you keep adding notes. And then, like I said, look at the longer time frames and maybe start looking at the moving averages, just studying them, not necessarily adding it
Yeah.
to your play, but
Hmm.
studying them to see where they're in relative to your entries and to what your the price action you're identifying.
Definitely. Definitely. That's good. I want homework assignments.
Um, and then next week we'll jump into something else, whatever we or you find knowledgeable or that'll help with
Yeah,
your trade.
absolutely. And like, and to any of the other members, like if there's things during the week or that you think of to like ask me about the challenge or like how I'm watching this or that, like, drop me a message, or like if you want to ask it during next week's meeting, you could save it for that if you want. And also like definitely like watch me go through this and watch me refine my setup and like get to know the setup yourself. And like while doing that, if there's something about the setup that's unclear, just like, let us know and we'll figure it out. And like, follow along. This could be one of your setups too. I'm really, really getting a lot out of it. And I think it's a really good setup.
Yep. Even if you don't, even if you have your own setup, follow along with the fundamentals that or the foundational blocks that we're starting to create, where you have your mindset, now you have your setup, Now you're creating your rules. And now you're actually putting into action to see if it's a successful setup. If it's not successful, then we'll fine tune it or add stuff to it. But not until then. Don't try to add all these other tools because that's just only going to confuse you and muddy the water instead of clearing it up. Um, Once you get a little bit more screen time and all that, we'll start adding more stuff and you'll become more familiar with your setups. And like I said, I've adjusted my setups, but I think I've found my go-to setup plus like 2 or 3. And then after that, I'm hitting my 4 or 5 trades, calling it a day. So thanks everybody for coming. See you guys next week. Happy trading. Have a great weekend.
Take care, everybody.